Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, October the 20th, 2020. It is currently 10:07 a.m. Central Time. And, well, I'm here at Victory Baptist Church. In front of me on the table right now, if I had a picture of this, I should have used the picture for the cover work for this for this podcast. What I probably should do is take a photograph of this and post it on the theologycentral.net blog. I really should because, well, if some people saw this, they would be greatly offended. If some people saw this, they would be greatly bothered. If some people saw this, they probably would unsubscribe and not listen to me anymore. So I probably shouldn't say anything, but now that I've brought it up, I guess I'm going to have to tell you. In front of me right now. And I as soon as I went live, I looked down. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of funny. Let me. I'll try to explain what if you could see this. Okay, the first thing in front of the books that are in front of me, I have a bottle of Dasani, because if it's not Dasani, it's not water. I just want you to understand that if it's not Dasani, it's not water. If I was stranded in the desert and I was crawling on my hands and knees, second away from death because of thirst, I was about to die because I had not had water and I was going to die of thirst. And I was like seconds away from death. And I stumbled over a hill in the desert and rolled down this big sand dune. And I rolled down into an oasis and there was a pool of water and I started drinking it. I would literally spit it out of my mouth and go, no, if it's not Dasani, it's not water. And I would just go ahead and crawl past the oasis and continue until I found a bottle of Dasani. Then I would drink and say, yes, there is water. Okay. So yeah. Okay. No, they're not a sponsor of my podcast. They should be. And then I should get paid. I have all kinds of ideas for commercials for Dasani. If they would listen to me, and that would be our logo. If it's not Dasani, it's not water. I'm telling you, we can make millions. But yeah, so that's the first thing here. And then underneath that bottle of Dasani, okay, on the right, there is the book. And both of these are old copies, but I have Of the Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis. I have it right here, okay? Obviously, we're getting ready to look at that. But guess what is sitting right next to my copy of The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis? Sitting right next to it. Are you ready? Okay, now some of you are getting ready to be offended, okay? I'm sorry, but I'm just going to be honest with you. Sitting right next to my copy of The Imitation of Christ is the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey. I am not joking. The cover is missing from my copy. Pages are falling out. I've had this copy of the Satanic Bible since I was a teenager, predating my conversion to Christianity, to my salvation. I usually have a copy of the Satanic Bible. Usually in October, I have it with me, usually, especially when I used to go to work. I would always carry the Satanic Bible with me to work because sooner or later, someone would say, hey, do you think Halloween is satanic? I'm like, well, okay, I'm not going to get into some big debate over that. To me, October 31st, it's about the Reformation. It's not about Halloween. I don't even know why Christians get into the debate. We celebrate the Reformation. Okay, that's what our focus should be. All right, but whether Halloween is satanic or not satanic, you can have that dispute. But if you turn to page 96 of the Satanic Bible, you're going to find that chapter is entitled Religious Holidays. And then guess what you find here? All right. Halloween is listed, and it says All Hallows Eve or All Saints Day falls on October 31st or November 1st. Originally, All Hallows Eve was one of the great fire festivals of Britain at the time of the Druids. In Scotland, it was associated with the time when the spirits of the dead, the demons, witches, and sorcerers were unusually active. All Hallows Eve was also the night when young people performed magical rituals to determine their future marriage partners. The youth of the village carried on with much merrymaking and sensual revelry. But the older people took great care to safeguard their homes from the evil spirits, witches, and demons who had exceptional power that night. All right. So bottom line is, this is one of the important holidays for the Satanic religion. And if you did not know, though, it is interesting to note, if you go to page 96 of the Satanic Bible, a lot of people do not know this, the highest of all holidays in the Satanic religion is the date of one's own birth. The date of one's own birth is the highest holiday of the Satanic religion. Now, why is that? Well, if you know anything about Satanism, especially the Anton LaVey version of Satanism, please note that ultimately what a Satanist worships is not the devil, Satan, as far as like the Bible's concerned. Satan really is just a symbol. It's really just, it's just symbolic of something. Basically, what you worship as a Satanist is, are you ready for this? Drum roll, please. Okay, I don't have a drum roll. Okay, if you do not know, a Satanist worships themselves. They worship themselves. Satanic religion is really, look, forget God. Okay, we all know deep down that we have, this is the way the Satanist looks at it. We all know deep down you have a desire to be selfish. You have a desire to put yourself before other people. You have a desire to use other people for your own advancement and for your own good. You have a desire for physical and sensual pleasure. Well, stop pretending that all of those desires are not there. Go embrace those desires. Celebrate those desires. Don't follow some religion and some God who tells you to deny all of that. Embrace what's actually there and basically celebrate and worship and exalt yourself. It's about you. You are the God you should worship. That's really the message of of Satanism, the Anton LaVey branch of Satanism. Satan is not, like so many people misrepresent what it actually says. But let me read this entire paragraph here. And you're like, what does this have to do with what you're getting ready to talk about? It has everything to do with what we're getting ready to talk about. All right. The highest of all holidays in the Satanic religion is the date of one's own birth. This is in direct contradiction to the holy of holy days of other religions, which deify a particular God who has been created in an anthropomorphic form of their own image, thereby showing that the ego is not really buried. Now, what does that all mean? What they're meaning is that in all religions, they have a God, right? They have a God that's basically been created in anthropomorphic form. In other words, that we have created God in our own image. So what we're really doing is worshiping our own ego. We just place what we think, a God should look like. In other words, we created it, but what we're really doing, we're not really being honest, we're really exalting our own self. We've deified our own ego into the form of a God that we've created in our own image. So why play along with that? Make your birthday the most holy day. Because you worship yourself, celebrate yourself, exalt yourself, get things for yourself. Don't give, get. Don't worry about other people. Receive their praise and their gifts. Celebrate yourself. So it's all about the exaltation of self within Satanism. All right. And so that's the most important holiday. And I think Halloween, is number 3. I think Halloween shows up as number 3 as the third most important holiday in the Satanic religion. And that's in the Satanic Bible. So typically I would have it. And if someone said, well, what about Halloween? I'm like, here, just read this. Now, typically, as soon as people saw it was the Satanic Bible, it always fascinated me. People are like scared to death. They wouldn't even touch it. People are not even Christians, scared to death of the Satanic Bible. Would not touch it. I would get in trouble because it'd be sitting on my desk at work and people would file a complaint. I'd be like, well, wait a minute. Don't we believe in the freedom of religion? Okay, even though I'm not a Satanist should be able to have their Bible on their desk if a Christian can have theirs. And then people are like, wait, are you a Christian? look, it's not that confusing. If I take away other people's rights, I'm taking away my own rights. I don't know why people can never understand that. Yes. So it's just interesting that Satanism is all about really the exaltation of self. I'm going to try. I've done this before, and it was not well received. It was not well received on sermon audio. It was not well received. I did a devotional on the 9 points of Satanism. At the very beginning, I'm putting on glasses there. If you go to the very beginning of the Satanic Bible, you've got some historical background, but then you have right here the 9 satanic statements. The 9 satanic statements. So I did kind of a devotional. And when I say a devotional, we looked at these 9 satanic statements of what it means to be a Satanist and how they are in direct contradiction. They're the direct opposite of what Christianity would teach. But here's the most fascinating thing about these 9 satanic statements. If you read the 9 satanic statements, you cannot deny that there's something deep down that you can be like, man, that's the way I feel. That's how I think, because it embraces our nature. It embraces our sinful nature. The difference is Satanism says we have this selfish, they wouldn't use the word, but this selfish, sinful nature. Why fight it? Why deny it? It's who you are. Be who you are. That's who you really are. So embrace who you are, where Christianity says, no, who you are is messed up. Who you are needs to die. Yeah. So Christianity is a completely different perspective. So it's just, to me, fascinating to compare the two. But I bring all of that up, not one, just because I just saw the contrast. Oh, here's the Satanic Bible sitting next to the book of the Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis. And we've been studying the Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis for a very long time now. And we've reached book 1. Well, we've been in book 1, but we've reached book 1, chapter, what do I have here? Chapter 7. Chapter 7. Now, what's fascinating is this chapter is called Vain Hope and Pride. Vain hope and pride. Now, if I contrast this with the Satanic Bible, the Satanic Bible really puts forth your hope is basically to trust in yourself. Your hope is to exalt self. That's where your hope comes from. It's not self-denial. Don't deny yourself anything. Get what you want. Take what you want. Your hope is basically the Satanic Bible. Your hope is eat, drink, and be merry because you're going to die tomorrow. So this is what you have. Grab onto it now, right? This is what you have. And it's about the exaltation of self. But Thomas à Kempis is going to come along and offer a completely different, radical approach to life. He's going to say there is a hope that is vain, that's empty, that's meaningless, and there is this thing called pride that we have to fight against. We should not be exalting self. So we're going to look at chapter 7 of book 1 of the Imitation of Christ, and we're just going to see, this just kind of hits you with one thing. This chapter is not hard to understand in the Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis at all. It's just very straightforward, and it's like boom, 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 boom. Hits you with these sayings, and you can just read through them really quick, or you could stop and really meditate on them. So I'm just gonna at least give these to you, and you can really start thinking about them. And in the copy that I have here, it does offer some scriptural references, so we will look at them. And it starts off this way. I think it's interesting. Vain. So this is page 20, book 1 of the Imitation of Christ. Chapter 7. Here we go. Vain is he who sets his hope in man or in creatures. Vain, empty, meaningless is he who sets his hope in man or in creatures. If we put our hope in men, if we put our hope in creatures, if we put our hope in others, it's vain, it's meaningless, it's empty. And the scriptural reference they give us is Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 5. Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 5, and I'm dropping all kinds of other books. Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 5, which reads this way. This is interesting. Jeremiah 17, 5. Thus saith the Lord, cursed be the man that trusteth in man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departeth from the Lord. Cursed is the man that trusteth in man. If our trust is in people, if our trust is in others, cursed. It's foolish. It's vain. It's empty. It's meaningless. Why? Because we should all know there's one truth about all of us. It's true about you. It's true about me. We are sinners. We have a depraved nature. I do not believe in the eradication of the old nature. I believe it remains until we are in the presence of God, and then in glorification, the old nature is eradicated. But we are sinners. We're going to let people down. Guess what we have? We have a nature which is just crazy. That in some ways, I think the Satanic Bible outlines human nature better than many Christians do. I think many Christians almost want to go with the Disney version, that somehow there's a goodness and there's a basic goodness in all of us, which is completely not biblical. The Satanic Bible really articulates what's really inside all of us, and it's not pretty. It's ugly. It's selfish. It's self-seeking. So guess what? Don't put your trust in people. Don't put your trust in a political leader. Don't put your trust in a political party. Don't put your trust in anyone. Okay? Not even in a religious leader of any kind, because they've got sin and you've got sin. Vain is he who sets his hope in man or in creatures. Now, so don't put our hope in men. And then the next sentence. Be not ashamed to serve others for the love of Jesus Christ, nor to be esteemed poor in this world. So even though we should not hope in other people, we should not be ashamed to serve others for the love of Jesus Christ. Because we love Jesus Christ, we should not be ashamed to serve others. Now, why would we be ashamed? I think the idea is if you spend your life serving others, that seems in the perspective of the world like, wait a minute, you're putting everyone else before you, and all you are is a servant. That's not a position that you should desire. You should want to be in charge of people, not serving people. You should want a position of power, a position of prestige, a position of control. But Thomas à Kempis is saying, no, don't be ashamed to serve others. Don't be ashamed to be a servant. It's because you're doing it for the love of Jesus Christ, who humbled himself and became a servant for sinful people like you and me. And don't be ashamed to be esteemed poor in this world. In other words, don't be ashamed to be viewed in a negative light in the eyes of the world. Don't be worried about that. And look, nobody wants to. We see this and sometimes in the smallest ways, but you can see this. Now, I have never gone back to a high school reunion, never would, never will. I hated high school. I don't want to even get to my experience in high school. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. I'm thankful. I am so thankful I made it through it. I don't even like. When I drive to church, I can go one direction and drive past the school that I went to in high school, or I can go the back way and avoid it. And I like to go the back way because I don't even want to see it, because it brings back bad memories. And I know what you could say, you should let it go. I have let it go to the best of my ability, but I have no desire to see it if I can avoid seeing it, all right? Because it was not a pretty experience. But I know this, there's lots of people who do the whole high school reunion thing and want to go back and relive the glory days and whatever. I think high school is the biggest waste of time in human history. It's so little about education and it's about social experience. It's just a waste of time. All right, but that's a whole different story. But when people go back, they want to go back and they want to make sure everyone knows if they have a successful job, they want everyone to know they have a successful job. If things are going great, everyone goes to try to give the idea of, look, I'm successful. Look what I turned out to be. And if you don't, you feel somewhat embarrassed. But no one wants to just be very honest and real about their lives, because we want people to perceive us in a certain way. People in high school, people wanted to be perceived a certain way. Adults do the same thing. And Thomas à Kempis is like, get over that. Don't worry about what the world thinks. Don't be ashamed of how they may perceive you. Don't be ashamed of that. I think sometimes we are still controlled by other people's perspective, other people's perception, other people's perspective, and it's not good. And I think I think there's a danger here. Now, Thomas à Kempis is not going this way, but let me make it very clear. There is a danger. Now, here is like, don't be ashamed to serve others, and don't be ashamed not to be esteemed poor in this world. Don't be worried about people, looking at you that way. Don't be worried about it. I think there's a danger that in your Christian life, if you mess up really bad and it's some kind of scandal, that shame can drive you away from Christianity because you're embarrassed and you're ashamed and you don't want to live, in a sense, with the scarlet letter branded on your forehead and everyone looking at you going, Nobody likes that, but we can't allow that to drive us away from Christ. That should drive us to Christ. We can't worry about what the world thinks. You can't worry about what Christians think. You can't. And I just think that there's an interesting thing there. But so let me read this paragraph again. Vain is he who sets his hope in man or in creatures. Be not ashamed to serve others for the love of Jesus Christ, nor to be esteemed poor in this world. Don't be ashamed to be esteemed poor in this world. Next paragraph. Presume not upon yourself, but place your hope in God. Presume not upon yourself, but place your hope in God. Now, they quote here Psalm 31:1, or they don't quote it. They just have it in parentheses here. Psalm 31:1. Let's go to Psalm 31:1. Psalm 31:1. Psalm 31:1 reads, Psalm 31:1, in thee, O Lord, do I put my trust? Let me never be ashamed. Deliver me in thy righteousness. In thee, O Lord, do I put my trust. Thomas à Kempis wants to understand that's where our trust has to be, in God, not in ourselves. Not in ourselves. Let me again read it again. Presume not upon yourself, but place your hope in God. Now, I'm going to reach over here. I have a different translation of the book. I'm sorry I hate when I grab something and then 50 books fall, because I always have a mess here, but that's okay. Let me get to this. All right, hang on. Where is... All right, trying to find the chapter. All right. Okay, here we go. All right, this is how this translation states it. This is page 9 of this modern translation of Thomas à Kempis's Imitation of Christ. Vain is the life of that man who putteth his trust in men or in any created thing. Be not ashamed to be the servant of others for the love of Jesus Christ, and to be reckoned poor in this life. Rest not upon thyself, but build up thy hope in God. All right. Now let me read that in the older translation. The older translation says, presume not upon yourself. Do not rest in yourself. Do not trust in yourself, but place your hope in God. That's where your hope needs to be. Your hope cannot be in your ability. You cannot trust in your ability. Your hope is not in your righteousness. Your hope is not in your goodness. Your hope is not in the spiritual fruit that you supposedly have in your life. Your hope has to be in God and ultimately in the finished work of Jesus Christ. Do what lies in you, and God will assist your good will. Do not lie in you. Do what lies in you, and God will assist your good will. In other words, do what you can. Live out your Christian life to the best of your ability. All right? Now, next paragraph. Trust not in your own knowledge. And just please note the way Thomas à Kempis is writing this chapter. This is what it feels like. And again, if you know the historical context, Thomas à Kempis was a monk. So I can almost imagine him just sitting in his, room, meditating, spending time in silent meditating. And there's just these random thoughts that are coming to his mind. And he's just writing them down. Right. And it's just, they start building one after another. And if you're not careful, you can just go past these so quick. Boom, he writes down in, say, his journal, vain is he who sets his hope in man or in creatures. Be not ashamed to serve others for the love of Jesus Christ, nor to be esteemed poor in this world. Presume not upon yourselves, but place your hope in God. Do what lies in you, and God will assist your good will. And then next, trust not in your own knowledge. Trust not in your own knowledge. It's just one thought after another, and each one gives you plenty to think about and meditate on. Now, for this one, trust not in your own knowledge, he placed in parentheses Jeremiah 9:23. Jeremiah 9:23. Find it, Jeremiah chapter 9. Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 23. Jeremiah 9:23. Jeremiah 9:23 reads, Thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might, and let not the rich man glory in his riches. Let me read that again. Jeremiah 9:23. Thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might, and let not the rich man glory in his riches. So we're not to glory in our own knowledge. We're not to glory in our own wisdom. We're not to trust in our own knowledge. We're not to trust in our own wisdom. We are not to do that, right? Again, Thomas Kempis put down, trust not in your own knowledge, nor in the subtlety of any living creature, but rather in the grace of God, who helps the humble and humbles those that are self-presuming. Wow, there's a lot right there. Are you trusting in your own knowledge? Are you trusting in your own wisdom? Are you? You think you know it. You think you understand it. You think you've got it figured out, because this is the exaltation of our own self and our own thinking. We sometimes think we're so smart. We think we're so clever. We think we've got it all figured out. Don't trust in your own knowledge. We've got to rely on a knowledge outside of ourselves, and it comes from Scripture. It comes from God. And he says, don't trust in your own knowledge, and then he says, nor in the subtlety of any living creature. Don't be trusting in the subtlety or the so-called wisdom of other people, but rather in the grace of God. And this is what the grace of God does. It helps the humble, and humbles those that are self-presuming. I go to 1 Peter. He has 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5 here. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5. Yeah, this is an important verse. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5. Likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yea, all of you be subject one to another, and be clothed with humility, for God resisteth the proud, and giveth grace to the humble. Now, I'm going to put 1 Peter 5:5 under the Bible Memory app. If you want the Bible Memory app, it's free. Just email me, and I will tell you how to get the Bible Memory app. You can join the VBC group, and you can memorize Scripture with us. But I think this is a powerful verse. 1 Peter 5:5, likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. And a lot of times people will take that, parents will take that part. Hey, you younger people, you need to submit to the elder. You submit to those who are older. But they seem to forget that the verse goes beyond just, hey, this age group submits to this age group, because it goes on to say, be subject one to another. All of you be subject one to another. There's a mutual submission amongst all of us. There's a mutual submission that we sometimes forget, right? Whether there are different areas of authority and different roles of authority, I'm not denying that, but there's still a mutual submission to one another, because we do not want to exalt ourselves. Right? And then it says, be clothed with humility, for God resisteth the proud and giveth grace to the humble. There needs to be a humility in all of us, not the exaltation of self, but the submitting of self, humbling ourselves. God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. Are you clothed with humility? Is humility the characteristic, the attribute that people see in you? Do they see humility or do they see the exaltation of self? How do you demonstrate humility to people in your family? How do you demonstrate humility to people in your church? How do you demonstrate humility to your pastor? How do you demonstrate humility to your boss? There's a convicting section here. Let me read it again. Trust not in your own knowledge, nor in the subtlety of any living creature, but rather in the grace of God, which helps the humble and humbles those that are self-presuming. Right? I almost want to stop right there, okay? But I'm going to try to finish this chapter. This chapter is powerful, right? We'll continue. Glory not in wealth, if you have it, nor in friends because they are powerful, but in God who gives all things, and above all desire to give you himself. Right? So let's go through this again. So glory not in wealth if you have it. If you have it, don't glory in your wealth. Don't boast. Don't make that the thing that you are the thing you find the greatest satisfaction in is that you have wealth. And again, it's easy to flaunt that or not to flaunt it maybe in a negative way, but at least wanting other people to know that you have it because you find a lot of maybe your identity. There's a lot of self-worth. Maybe a little bit of pride comes from it. Don't glory in your wealth. Nor in friends because they are powerful, but in God who gives all things and above all desires to give you himself. Right? That we should glory in God. Who's ultimately the source of all things. Extol not yourself for the height. Extol not yourself for the height of your stature or beauty of your person, which is disfigured and destroyed by a little sickness. So, in other words, hey, don't exalt yourself because of your physical ability or your physical appearance. Yeah, you may be the best looking, you may be the strongest, you may be the tallest. So therefore you find a lot of your identity in your strength and your looks. But Thomas à Kempis reminds us it can be disfigured and destroyed by just a little sickness. Just going to take a little bit and it can be all gone. But listen, just remember this, no matter how strong, no matter how beautiful, no matter how perfect you think you are, it can all be gone. It will all go away ultimately because of age. It's all going to deteriorate. It's all going to weaken. And nobody likes that. I think this just demonstrates how much we find our identity and how much we find our worth and how much we find value in our physical appearance and our physical ability. Anytime someone looks into a mirror, right? And let's say, you're now 50 and you used to be 20, obviously. Okay, if you're 50, there was a time you were 20. But I think when anyone looks in that mirror and they're 50, they can't help but either I don't know how people process it. I think everyone has different thoughts, but I think there's a sense of maybe disappointment, maybe there's a little sense of depression because you see the reality of your own mortality. You don't look the same. You see a picture of when you were 20, and like when you were 20, you may not have been happy with your looks. You may have not, man, I don't like the way my hair looks. I don't like this. There's things you probably didn't like. But then when you get 50, you long for going back to when you were 20. All right, I can look in the mirror now and go, man, I wish there were things I didn't like about myself then. Oh, but there's a lot of things I don't like about myself now. But guess what? I'm viewing life from the perspective of the flesh. There's got to be more to who we are than simply our looks. Now, yes, no, everyone wants to look nice. I understand that. I'm not saying just don't take care of yourself, but I'm saying that it gives us a little clue, a little indication that sometimes our perspective is so flesh-based, fleshly, that we don't view things from a godly perspective. And he's fighting against this. Hey, don't extol yourself. Don't exalt yourself based off your height, your stature, your beauty, because all that can be taken away from you in seconds. It can all go away. And now he doesn't articulate the fact that it's going to go away. It's not a matter of it can go away. It will go away. It will deteriorate. You will see the decay of your own looks, of your own stature, of your own strength, and your own ability, whether physical or mental. And that's a depressing thing. Nobody wants to experience it. But there's more to us than just this physical body. There's an eternal and internal and eternal part of us that will live forever. That's who we truly are. All right, and we could have a very important discussion there. But all right, so let's read that again. Extol not yourself for the height of your stature or the beauty of your person, which is disfigured and destroyed by a little sickness. Take not pleasure in your natural gifts or talent, lest thereby you displease God, which is all the good whatsoever you have by nature. So in other words, don't take pleasure in your natural abilities and your natural gifts or talents, or you'll end up displeasing God, because what you should take pleasure in is God, who is all the good whatsoever you have by nature. Whatever good you have, whatever talent you have, comes from God. So take pleasure in God. Don't take pleasure in yourself. Take pleasure in the one who gave you that strength, that talent, that ability. Don't take pleasure in the ability and the talent. Take pleasure in God, because that ability and that talent will at some point deteriorate and fall apart. Guess what will remain? God. All right. Then the last very long paragraph. Here we go. Esteem not yourself better than others. Do not esteem yourself better than others. Now, I think there's always situations where we feel better, that we're better than other people. Sometimes we can do it with knowledge. I've done that with knowledge. Sometimes I feel like I'm smarter than other people. I got to be careful with that. So do you. All right. Esteem not yourselves better than others, lest perhaps in the sight of God, who knows what is in man, you be accounted worse than they. Yeah. You may think you're better than other people for whatever reason. Maybe because you believe you're more moral than them, you're more upstanding than them, you're more social than them. Where there's always things that we think we're better than other people, because we can find things that we are better than other people. But guess what? God knows what's really inside a man, and you could be shocked when you're accounted worse than they. Be not proud of good works, for the judgments of God are different from the judgments of men, and that often offends him which pleases men. Right? So don't be proud of your good works, because the judgments of God are different from the judgments of men. You may think, look at all the things I do, look at all the things I don't do. God judges differently. God views things from a different perspective. We need a more God-directed perspective than a man-directed perspective. Remember, God said David was a man after God's own heart, even though he did some horrible things. Why? Because God goes beyond just an external good work. He goes to the heart, and that means our judgments are usually flawed and messed up because we don't see things correctly. But he says, be not proud of good works, for the judgments of God are different from the judgments of men, and that often offends him which pleases men. Sometimes the thing that offends God pleases other people, and everyone praises your good works, and God is actually offended by them. If there be any good in you, believe better things of others, that you may preserve humility. Now that's a thought. That's a powerful thought. If you find any good in you, any good thing in you, any good thing about you, anything that you think is praiseworthy, good, worthy, if you do that, believe better things about other people. If you see good in you, believe that other people are even better than you, because it preserves humility. It keeps you humble. It does not hurt to set yourself lower than all men. It does not hurt to set yourself lower than all men. Wow, that goes so against everything that we think. But it hurts exceedingly if you would set yourself before even one man. So spiritually, it hurts exceedingly if you set yourself before even just one person. You should make yourself lower than everyone. But if you put yourself even before one, you ultimately spiritually hurt yourself. Continual peace is with the humble, but the heart of the proud is envy and frequent indignation. Now I did a little Bible study exercise on peace. You could work on this. According to Thomas à Kempis, if you want continual peace in your life, the way to that peace is with humility. How does humility bring continual peace in your life? And how does pride bring the opposite? That's something I really want you to meditate on. How does humility truly bring peace in your life? And he says it's continual peace. How does pride disrupt peace, destroy peace? Something to really, really think about here. And this is the last sentence. Continual peace is with the humble, but in the heart of the proud is envy and frequent indignation. I think when we're proud and we're so driven by self-interest, there's never going to be true peace because we're going to be bothered by everything. Anything that doesn't go our way, we're going to be upset. Every person who doesn't do what we want, we're going to be upset because it's about us. Humility, you become almost invisible. That's a powerful chapter. Now, I just want to throw in contrast. I'm just going to do this quickly. In contrast to what we just read in The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis, which is all about, humility and staying away from pride and the way we look at ourselves, a very powerful chapter. In contrast to this, let me reach over here. Wasn't the original plan, but since it's sitting here, let me pick up the Satanic Bible. All right? Page 25 of the Satanic Bible, right? I'm going to read the 9 satanic statements. And I want you to see how this promotes a way of life that is completely contrary to what we just read in The Imitation of Christ. Here we go. Number 1. First satanic statement of the Satanic Bible. If you're going to be a Satanist, here are the 9 statements you would have to adhere to. We can kind of call it their creed. All right, here we go. Number 1. Satan represents indulgence instead of abstinence. Hey, if you're going to be a Satanist, right, then hey, you care about indulgence, not abstinence. Indulge in what you want. It's all about you, your wants, your desires, your needs. Don't abstain from anything. Indulge in whatever you want. Number 2, Satan represents vital existence instead of spiritual pipe dreams. Worry about the here and now. Worry about this vital existence. Don't worry about some spiritual perspective, some spiritual good, some spiritual life, some heaven, some eternal reality. Focus on the vital existence of right now, not some spiritual pipe dream. Number 3, Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit. Undefiled wisdom is focus on what you want. Get what you want, not some hypocritical self-deceit. Anton LaVey, the author of the Satanic Bible, would say it's hypocritical self-deceit to try to focus on some spiritual wisdom and denying our nature and fighting against our nature and trying to abstain and humbling yourselves and putting others before yourself and submitting yourself to God. He would say all of that is simply hypocritical self-deceit because it denies the reality that you know is inside of you. So don't fight it, embrace it. That's what he said is undefiled wisdom. Where the Bible says no, true wisdom is to fear God. True wisdom is to be humble. That the Bible offers a completely different perspective on wisdom. Number 4, Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates. Hey, if someone doesn't deserve it, then don't love them. Only love people who deserve it. Only show kindness to people who deserve it. All right? Only show kindness to those who deserve it, and don't waste your love on people who don't deserve it. Where the Bible says, love even your enemy. Thomas Kempis was humble yourself before everyone. Serve people. It's a completely radical different approach. But please note, we all have this feeling inside of us, oh, I'm not going to help that person anymore. They don't deserve it. I'm not going to show kindness to that person. They don't deserve it. We all feel that at times. All right. Number 5 of the 9 satanic statements. Satan represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek. Don't turn the other cheek. Vengeance. Strike back. Number 6. Satan represents responsibility to the responsible instead of concern for psychic vampires. In other words, don't have concern for people who simply, in a sense, they're like a vampire. They just suck the life out of you. They take. Don't show any responsibility to them, only for the responsible, only for those who deserve it. You're not helping your enemy, loving your enemy, helping the weak, only the people who actually deserve it. Number 7. Satan represents man just as another animal, sometimes better, more often worse than those that walk on all fours, who because of his divine, spiritual, and intellectual development has become the most vicious animal of all. Satanism says there's no sanctity to life. There's no sacredness to life. You're just an animal, and in many cases, we are the most vicious animals of all. Now, I agree that that's a great description of our nature, but they say embrace that nature. I argue we have to strive to mortify that nature, kill that nature, crucify that nature, and put on something different. But Satan, that's number 7. Satan represents man just as another animal, sometimes better, more often worse than those that walk on all fours, who because of his divine, spiritual, and intellectual development has become the most vicious animal of all. Number 8. This is the 9 satanic statements found in the Satanic Bible. Number 8. Satan represents all of those so-called sins as they all lead to physical, mental, or emotional gratification. So what the Bible calls sin that we should abstain from and stay away from, Satanism says, no, sin leads to physical, mental, and emotional gratification. They say sin is a good thing, and we say sin is a bad thing. A completely radical different approach. Number 9, Satan has been the best friend of the church. Satan has been the best friend the church has ever had, as it has kept it in business all these years. So they say, hey, Satan, the idea of Satan, it's the best gift the church has ever had because it's kept it in business all these years. Right? So don't view Satan as a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing. The idea of Satan has kept the church in business. So the church should not fight against it. They have to acknowledge they simply use it for their own advancement, their own power, and their own way to get money and to stay in business. All right? Completely different approach to life. Now, what I want you to understand is the Satanic Bible is kind of the approach you naturally take in life. What Thomas Kempis just laid out is a radically different approach. The way we view ourselves, the way we view knowledge, the way we view people. We have to fight against pride. We need humility. It's a radically different approach. All right, I'll stop right there. Thomas Kempis, chapter 7 of book 1. I believe it's chapter 7 of book 1. Let me open it back up, make sure. Yeah, chapter 7, book 1 of the Imitation of Christ, vain hope and pride. We went through that so quick. You really could just read that chapter over and over and over. Read it, meditate on it, and send me your feedback at newsif@yahoo.com. Newsif@yahoo.com. Well, all right, we'll stop right there. That took an interesting twist. I doubt you've ever heard a podcast where they compared the Imitation of Christ to the Satanic Bible. Okay, I doubt you've probably ever seen that, but there you have it. All right. Well, I may have to change the title of this to get maybe more listeners. I don't know. All right, everyone stop right. We'll stop right there. Everyone have a great day. God bless.